Recording started.
Good afternoon. My name is Chuck Weiner, and I'm from Purdue University, Calumet. It's in wonderful Indiana, one of the Hoosier states, I guess the Hoosier state. I'm professor and department head of our Computer Information Technology and Graphics department. So I have two programs within our department. And actually, this presentation can apply to both of those. Although specifically, I'll be talking about the information technology as opposed to graphical technology experiences of our students, because we typically have more of our students that are in the IT side go through this required course. In the graphics side, the plan of study the students have is an optional course, is an elective for them to take the experiential learning internship. They don't have to do it, and they have to pay for any courses, of course, so it's an additional course that would cost them money if they took it. But in the IT side, the plan of study requires them to take two of these classes. It's the same course number, but they're allowed to take it twice. In fact, they're required to take it twice. Anytime during the presentation, if you have a question or comment or say, stop a minute because that doesn't sound right to me, just yell it out and I'll be sure to stop right then, and we'll talk about whatever the topic is that you'd like to discuss. I have actually 4 different Word documents in addition to this particular PowerPoint presentation. The 4 Word documents are documents that the client and or the student, as well as the advisory committee members who participate in the end of semester presentation to the client by the student, as well as to our advisory committee members. We are soon to be ABET accredited. We went through our visitation at the end of September, the first week of October. The good news that we received is outstanding as far as I can tell, so we're not expecting any surprises, and come at the end of August, we fully expect to be able to say that we're ABET accredited in our CIT program. So, pardon? ABET, SIG-IT model curriculum for ABET. So, what is experiential learning? This is a definition that's fairly well accepted. It identifies that we want to be able to have not only our classroom experiences, but to be able to tie that back into a work environment. Because one of the things that's important is for our students to see what it's like to sit next to someone other than a student, right? And find out what is the, I guess, camaraderie, the mentoring, the assistance, the sharing of knowledge, the learning of the job itself in real life. So that's why this is so important. Our chancellor, who recently retired, one of his mantras was that we have a very specific need, and that is to give our students as much of an opportunity as possible to get a job over someone else. And one way to do that is by having 2 courses required by the time they graduate that are called this experiential learning coursework. So in fact, it's mandated, okay, by our campus, and we're one of the few in the state of Indiana, in fact in the country, that requires it as opposed to making it optional. One of the earlier presenters today had their internship, which is one of the types of experiential learning that we have, but it was optional. The students don't get credit for it. They do get paid, which is great, but they don't necessarily put it on their transcript, although I'm sure they identify it in the cover letter, right? Here, it's part of their transcript, okay? It's a requirement. This little ditty.
Presentations are a powerful communication medium.
So, what I'm trying to prove by this one is there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And we feel we have a lot of experience in being able to allow our students to have the benefit of getting a job, may or may not be paid for, get credit for it, have to pay for it because it is a course that's credit. But we want to make sure that we have everything that's necessary for them to be successful within the framework of required checkpoints within this experiential learning course. So, what are the types of experiential learning that our students are able to participate in? Here they are. Co-op education, that's been around for probably since the dinosaurs almost, right? Where people work a semester, no classes, not at the university at all, get paid for a 40-hour work week, and then come back the following semester and take their coursework. So instead of taking 4 years, oops, nobody gets done in 4 years anymore, do they? Probably more like 6 years, we say, 5 years maybe. So it's going to take them twice as long, whatever number of years it is. And that's part of the process, though, because they're learning and getting paid and having the practical experience of a co-op education. The other one is internship, which is one of the things that our students do. Design project, this is for our seniors that are putting together an entire package for a client based on the client's requirements. And cultural immersion, we don't have too many students participating in that. That's really saying the student gets to go out to, as one of the people this morning or yesterday morning, I guess we're talking, going to China or Paris or one of the other countries and participating in some kind of shared learning experience. Unfortunately, our students don't have that kind of money to do that. We don't have grants to support them. But nevertheless, that is where they're learning not only how to do the job of whatever it is they've been trained in within our courses, but also learning about how others think, how others are able to share their knowledge from different countries, how they work, so to speak. Practicum is somewhat similar to an internship. Service learning is something that our department, I guess, doesn't specifically have, but in a way we do. Service learning is like, since every program within the university has to have 2 courses mandated for the students to take, not just our CIT or CGT departmental programs, but even English, philosophy, social science, building construction technology, electrical and computer engineering, all the different programs, each one of them has to have students complete 2 courses that are experiential learning. Our construction technology students wound up going to New Orleans and rebuilding houses, okay? So that was part of their service learning activity. And other programs have similar types of needs. Someone said to me, well, what the heck could a philosophy student do that would be experiential learning? And as one of the professors told me in that program, well, they can go to one of the governmental agencies and help them develop a document that will somehow give them what it takes to be, I should say not to be, doing something illegal or immoral or whatever. You know, it's a document that says, here's what we are, here's what we do, and put it together in such a way that they would sign it, or at least be aware of it, if nothing else. Research, we have a number of our students who work with faculty members. And that faculty research is, as an end result, meant for the student to be able to come up with a publishable paper or a document, research paper that would allow them to present at a conference such as this. And we've had a number of students be able to do that already. They've been to Washington State, and for us that's a long haul, right? Or to other Midwest-type conferences where they presented papers where the faculty member is the second author, and of course the student would become the first author. And you'll see them on a little bit more of this. Now what I've done is, and I'm just going to real quickly go through this, the next 7 slides, effectively describe each of these, and I'd be more than happy to share the slide presentation with anybody. If you want to leave me your email address, I can easily get that to you. I know that the presentation is going to be posted as well, but if you wanted the actual slides, I'm not opposed to having you have that. So service learning, as I mentioned, this is one of the 7 types of activities that our students can participate in. I mentioned before, working within the community, like going to New Orleans or one of the other sites. In fact, within the Hammond, Indiana area, which is where our campus is, 20 miles southeast of Chicago, not so far east that we're in the Lakeville, okay, but southeast of Chicago. Our students, again, in the construction program, wound up building houses for some of the people that were in need of housing. So they prefabbed the house within the campus, they put it on site, and they put it together. Co-op ed, I mentioned to that, where students are out of school for a whole semester, they get paid for a 40-hour week, they get benefits from being there, so it's not a 1099 that they get, but it's a W-2 at the end of the year, that kind of thing. Internships, which is what pretty much most of our students participate in. We want them to be working within the field that they're studying in, whether it's networking, information assurance and security, or what we call enterprise type of study, which is database and programming. Yes?
On the internships, do they find their internships or do you find their own?
One of my colleagues always had the students find their own, as long as it wasn't where they currently work, if they're working. Because we want them to have a varied type of experience. I have had a few students interested and able to find their own, and that was fine. I'll put some of those sites up here after we get done with this presentation. But I almost prefer to find a site for them, something that challenges them a little bit perhaps, and they're a little out of their comfort zone, but that's okay too. But if they found their own and it wasn't where they're working and it was meaningful enough, then I would give them approval to use that. Undergraduate research, as I mentioned, they work with faculty members either in our department or outside of our department in order to do research, which may involve some type of copyrightable software, because that's what they might be working in, database and systems being developed. Or it could be something in terms of, like one of our faculty members is heavily involved in the solution to disaster management communication systems. It doesn't mean a disaster recovery system like we typically think of, backup and that kind of thing, but instead all of the related tables and databases that would be used in order to match up resources with need. And she's developed this using Google Maps, Google interfaces, so that even if there's a problem in one location, and it used to be a road going between point A and point B where the resources need to be traveled to the other location, the system will automatically reroute it and get that information to whoever's driving or perhaps using a helicopter in order to get to that location. So very sophisticated systems. Students have been working on that for the last 5 years, okay? Developing multiple modules for that. So that's another type of undergraduate research. One of the students I mentioned that went to Washington State this past fall presented his type of that research, his section of it, at that conference. Cultural immersion, I mentioned when the students go out to another country or another location away from home, and they're totally immersed within the culture itself. Language, professional experience that they're getting in terms of their chosen field. Practicum, to me, is kind of like an internship because it is, in fact, working somewhere, learning how to be involved with projects that are, again, within their chosen field, whether it's, in this case, networking, information assurance and security, or the database programming aspect of our program. Design projects, there's a little overlap between this and the research with a faculty member. If it's not pure research, it could be like a design project which the students and the faculty member are working on, as in our professor Barbara Nicolai and her process that she's working on, the disaster management communication system. So here we have 8 specific requirements for an experiential learning course. And in order to make something like this meaningful, something meaning a course, right? Because it goes on the transcript, the students have to get some valid experience in order to make sure that when they go out on a job, they can use this as a reference, right? kind of like a portfolio of sorts, of things they've accomplished. So there is a national association called National Society for Experiential Education, nsee.org, and it has very specific requirements in order to be classified as an experiential learning course. Our faculty, through the University Senate, has set up a series of criteria that must be met in order for a course to have a designation within the course listings to show that the course is in fact an ExL, experiential learning course. Just like we have general ed courses, right? And those general ed courses have to satisfy specific requirements to be a gen ed course, so do these experiential learning courses. And in order for it to be accepted that way, it has to have all 8 of these entries identified. Now, it doesn't have to have, I guess, the varying degrees of this, so let me just click on this to bring this up. And I didn't go to the home page of this. Instead, I went to the page that identifies these 8 different principles. And I know it's too small for you probably to see in the back. But again, it details what each of these are. What is the intention? Obviously, it means that learning has to take place, purposeful, thought out, and so forth. Preparedness and planning, just like one of the previous presenters indicated. You can't have success if you don't have preparation and design and planning. That means working with all the stakeholders, which I'll talk about after I get done with this website. So this is, again, authenticity, again, making sure that it's meaningful, that it's used within the context of the coursework that the student is preparing themselves to become a professional in. Reflection, this is absolutely critical. If the students don't think about what they've done, if they don't explain what they've done on a weekly basis with regard to journaling, as one of the previous people mentioned in one of their presentations today, then it loses a lot of meaningfulness. So reflection is required. They send out, and we use Blackboard at our campus, so the students every week by, I say, 11:59 on Sunday, they have to post their journal entry, and then during the week I will give them feedback on whatever they've said. One of the things I picked up from Leslie, I believe it was, somebody that spoke earlier today, is the fact that she tells them, I think it was Leslie, maybe not, that she tells them what they need to report on, okay? I don't do that. I tell them up front in the course syllabus what I want them to talk about, but I don't literally say, okay, now this week you're going to tell me about X, Y, Z, and next week it'll be A, B, C, or whatever. That might not be a bad idea. In the past, I've only had a few students who have been kind of lame about what they put down. Most people are pretty honest, and they give a good definition of what they've accomplished that week. Again, this is throughout the semester, so 15 of the 16 weeks, they're doing this type of work, whatever it might be, for their internship, if that's what it is, as experiential learning. And then they report on that every week. Orientation and training, there needs to be something like that. We do a little bit of that. I meet with the students face-to-face prior to them going out on their first job. Students this semester gave me feedback, we need to see you more, meaning me, okay? Which is great. I didn't think about that. So I'm going to meet with them at least 3 times, once at the beginning, once probably 4 weeks into it, another time mid-semester, 8 weeks, and then, of course, at the end of the semester when they make their presentations. Monitoring continuous improvement, just like the good management people we all are, aren't we? I mean, we manage our projects, we manage our students, we try to manage ourselves, right? We have to have that feedback loop, okay? So that's what this is referring to. Make sure that whatever we're doing, we're recording whatever it is, hopefully on paper somewhere, not just up here, because we have too many things going on up here. And then we have some feedback loop to say, you know, let's fix this, or we have this problem, and the next time we offer it, or the next time, if we can beforehand, during the same semester, we modify, right? We make adjustments where necessary. So that's number 6. Number 7, You scroll down a little bit here. Is assessment and evaluation. This takes the form of the weekly activities the students perform in terms of their journal entries. It also is the end of semester when the other faculty in the department, our advisory committee members, the students, their significant others, could be even their parents, right? They're somewhat significant, as well as the clients themselves are at that presentation. And like I said, I had like 17 last semester. This semester I have at least 20 that are going through this. So it's like an all-day affair. And the students must attend every single session. They make their presentation. They don't say bye-bye, adios. They're there for the whole day. We do treat them to lunch, no matter a little bit that we can do for them. Everybody, no matter who's there, right? So we pop for some bucks on that. But we want to be able to get some feedback. One of the forms that I'll bring up at the end of the presentation is a form that the evaluators, who are in this case the clients as well as the faculty members and advisory committee members, fill out regarding the way the student made their presentation, the content. You'll see it when I put it up there. And again, I'll be glad to send those documents to you as well. Acknowledgement and recognition. This is, pardon me, again, using the information that the students present, which is every week in their journaling, as well as the end of the semester. And then there's another form which I didn't include in the ones I'm handing out. But I asked the students when they create their paper, which is a major paper at the end of the course, they also have to identify what do they think they're going to get as a grade. Well, everybody says A. No, not always. You know, some of them are relatively honest. They say a C or a B. And I'm thinking, well, where did I go wrong? You know, everybody should get an A if they've done what they're supposed to do. But that's important because they need to have self-reflection. They need to think about what is it that they've done? Are they proud of what they've done? What needs to be changed on my perspective the next time this course is offered?
You mentioned that they talk about needing to see more of you.
Right.
And that, to me, that's one of the keys that community college brings to have, as opposed to online courses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we do offer, this is essentially a DL course, right? Because we're using Blackboard, other than meeting them once at the beginning, once at the end. I'm going to have more of that. And it's not a problem because all the students are here in terms of local to the course. So yeah, that was good feedback from me. Okay. So let me get out of this. Any questions about these 8 things? Again, you can see them if you download this system that I have. So this is, again, a further definition of these 8 practices that are principles that we want to use for ExL learning. So I mentioned before, how is the reflection of what they've done or the evaluation performed? One way is by the weekly journaling. We use Blackboard. Another is a significant research paper. Now, one of the students, well, a handful of students out of the 17 said, what the heck do you want me to do for a research paper when this is not a research project? It's real life work that we're doing. And I said, well, sometimes you're going to stretch beyond what your comfort level is. And you're going to have to look up and research and find out how to do something that your boss is asking you to do in your internship. We had students a couple summers ago placed at our Purdue University West Lafayette main campus in the high-performance computer work area. And one of the mentors, as was talked earlier in this case, it was a supervisor, asked the student to do something that they weren't comfortable with. And the student said, well, I don't know how to do that, you know. So the student basically asked him, well, how do you do that? And he said, if I knew how to do it, I wouldn't have you here. Makes sense, right? So the student got on the different methods and did the research and figured it out, and that was a great learning experience for that student. You know?
Amazing what you can find online.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of online resources. And then at the end of the semester, as I said, the client presentation, where in fact not only clients but our advisory committee members, as I said, we're going to be ABET accredited. That means that we need to involve the advisory committee members in viewing, working with the results of what our students do in this type of project. So it's important that even if the advisory committees aren't there, we always videotape it. We use Adobe Connect and we record it so that those folks that are out of town, or literally are not near us but are still advisory committee members, they can log on and get into and see what the students are doing, even though they're not there. There it goes, a rocket ship. Okay, let me do that one more time. What I like to think this one is that it's important to be able to prepare the students for a successful blast off. They need to be able to know that they've got what it takes. And if they screw up and make a mistake, they make it with me as opposed to that job site they're going to be on. So it's up to me and the rest of our faculty to be sure that before that match is struck and we light the fuse to get the rocket ship up, that they are prepared properly. That's very important.
And propel global causes.
Here's a little graphic to indicate that what we want to do as faculty members, as teachers, as mentors, is to make sure that we are able to prepare the student as well as the other stakeholders, which again are the client sites, other faculty members, perhaps advisory committee members, but certainly students and clients, and make sure that they have everything they need to properly understand what they're supposed to do. Different ways people have talked about this at earlier sessions today in this room. One thing is, we all know what a SOW is, not SOB, SOW, statement of work, right? So a statement of work is required, as well as more definitive information that the client is looking for, detailed information, right? What are the outcomes a student is supposed to perform? What's the timeline they're supposed to have? You'll see one of the Word documents I have is a week-by-week schedule of what the expectations are of the client site. So the student signs this as well as the client site prior to going out there and doing the work. There's a meeting involved, maybe more than one meeting, where this is clearly defined and agreed to. And then they both sign it, the client supervisor as well as the student, and then it comes back to me. This one just means that there was a little clock there and a little dollar sign. Time is money, right? Now, some of the clients that we have are not-for-profit. This is kind of, I guess, necessary because they're looking for a community partner, the university, right? To be able to supply some of the resources that either they can't afford to hire or they just don't have a budget line for it. It could be anything from creating a database and the interface to have it work either via the web or maybe just local area network. And it could be something as simplistic as an Access database or something with SQL or MySQL, again, depending on how much money. Or Oracle, probably not, even though we teach Oracle. It's just too doggone much money for them to be able to afford. But some of the larger companies, we have a number of, anybody heard of ArcelorMittal? ArcelorMittal? They're a huge, like number 2 maybe in the world, steel mill. And they have many plants worldwide. One of them is in our geographical area in East Chicago, Indiana, probably 10 minutes from our campus. They always hire our interns, and they pay them at least $12 an hour. And if the student gets A's and B's, what do? They reward them with more hourly money. So they give them the incentive that, you do well in school, you probably do well here, we're going to raise your hourly by whatever, I'm not sure what it is. So that's a great incentive. Also, every single one of the interns that have been at that company have been hired full-time. And a lot of them stay locally, but they have worldwide offices.
What sort of work do they do?
They do heavy lifting, pouring concrete and steel. What they do is IT stuff, networking, assurance and security, database, things that we train them for within our classes. So it's business, manufacturing activities. Yes?
So does the company pick the intern or do you pick the intern?
Question is, do companies or I pick the interns? sometimes it's the intern. The intern will recommend other students in their program, and then the company will ask me about that. Of course, the student will send them their vita, or resume, and then if they like him, they'll hire that person as an intern. And that's worked out, like I say, so far brilliantly for everybody involved. And even though we think that, the steel mills, which for the most part used to be 25,000 people hired and working in our area, now there are probably 2,500, okay, that are physically doing that kind of work. But they still have a need for all of the ancillary type of activities, right? All the IT stuff and so forth. So they still need that type of support and assistance.
Do you do more robotics these days, too?
We don't, in our program, we don't teach the robotics, but obviously they're using that. We have a Center for Information Visualization on our campus, which is, I don't know if you've heard of the term CAVE, where 3D environment, where you put on gloves and goggles and whatever. We have a 50-seat auditorium where the cave itself can be opened up flat like this, or can be opened up like a 3-sided rectangle. And the students, not our students in particular, but students mostly in the engineering area, work in that environment. We do have some collaboration between our faculty and some of our students that do work in that as well, because our computer graphics technology students are really hunkered down and into that kind of thing.
What was that, Star Trek, the holodeck or something like that?
Holodeck on Star Trek? Yeah, that's right. Someday, right?
Everything else in Star Trek is almost everything else.
Right, we heard about that. Yes. So here, this...
Apply a consistent treatment to your graphics to give your whole presentation a unified look, so that your audience is attracted to, rather than distracted from, your message.
Thank you. So here, my message doesn't come out very well. On my screen, it looks great, but it should have been white instead of red on the black, right? And essentially, what this is again saying is that we want to continually reflect, interact, and communicate with all of the stakeholders frequently, not infrequently. It's like we don't want to assess our students at the end of the semester and don't have a clue what's going on in between, right? Nor do we want to do the same thing with our stakeholders involved within the environment of these ExL classes. So there's a lot of communication involved. This is just a cute one I thought I'd find, right? Saying we have a block of granite. It doesn't look like anything other than a block of granite, but we have the chisel, we have the hammer, and we have the brain, as well as all the interaction that we have from the stakeholders in order to create what is required, right? So we start out with nothing, essentially, other than a plain old block, but we're able to chisel and scrape and make the right things in the end result. Here I'm giving just some statistics of our local campus. We have hundreds of classes on campus, of course. 121 of those courses are identified with the prefix ExL. That means that they satisfy those NSEE requirements, and our Faculty Senate has reviewed and evaluated the documents to support students taking these and getting credit for them as real experiential learning. Now, this is the probably 4th year, I think, that we've been doing this. And now there is a sequence of reviewing. So those courses that were initially evaluated and given credit as being ExL courses, we're now looking at them again, not me, but a committee off of the University Senate for the curriculum committees to determine whether or not they're still valid ExL courses. If not, then the faculty members who are sponsoring those or teaching those have to go back and make changes. Again, those 8 different points that have to be met.
Do industry, people who hiring aware of these, and do they, if they look for something like that?
We don't flaunt it, but in order for a student to go out on work as an ExL course, they absolutely know that they don't know the 8 categories and that kind of stuff, but they know that those courses are in fact certified to be valid experiential learning activities. So the answer is yes, but we don't want the fact that they need to know all those in different forms.
Yeah, I was just curious if down the road they might look for that being part of what a student had in the hiring process.
They absolutely do, because that's the whole point. Our chancellor, like I said several years ago, made the commitment students must have 2 of these courses to graduate from the university. If they don't, you're not going to graduate. Okay.
Has the number of courses, experiential learning courses, increased, decreased, stayed the same?
It's increased over the last probably 2 years, and our dean and the deans of the other colleges at the campus have, have kind of made a commitment because they know that students need these courses to graduate. Now, it's true, some of the, I guess maybe liberal arts, social science courses, instead of a Department of English having their own ExL course, they may use instead one of the social science or philosophy courses, and that would be okay.
How many departments have the experiential courses? About on campus departments?
There are like 26 departments on campus, many more than half.
I'm sorry I missed it, but how long have the university been doing the experiential learning?
Since the fall of 2008, they've had to have, students must have 2 courses completed in ExL. We've offered courses prior to that, but they weren't certified as being ExL courses. That's when it started with the official 2008.
Jeff, what do you hear from the students? How do they, their general opinion, and what is it, do they think they're getting a lot out of it, or?
Yes, and I'll show a little comment from a couple of students at the end of this. So anyway, 1,227 students last semester were involved in these courses. Are those duplicated or unduplicated? Unduplicated.
Wow.
A student probably is not going to take 2 ExL courses at the same time. So it would, now they may take one fall, one spring, but these are unduplicated numbers. Okay? Now this slide is from our ExL office, if you will, Experiential Learning office. I know you can't see everything, but the most popular way that students are getting this experiential learning is through projects. Projects, as defined down here, are in fact going to be outside of campus. However, that was 48%. 46% of these ExL courses are within the university. You might say, why is that? Well, they're like a not-for-profit too, right? And we're hurting for money like everybody else. And if they can find student workers that are competent to do the stuff they need, then they'll ask us for them.
You know what the service project is?
It is a service project, but it in fact is within the university. It's actually an internship of sorts, but it's within the campus.
What's the difference between project and service project?
Service project may be one of those things like we mentioned where they go out to,
a nonprofit?
well, maybe nonprofit, but also going out to a different part of the country, like when Katrina had all the issues and they had to help rebuild and clean up the place.
So there's a community type component to a service project?
There is. The service project was incorporated by one of our faculty members from the liberal arts social science area. Of course, right? and it's been successful because, you know, students are involved and they need to be involved in something. And it satisfies a couple of them. So it's true. Again, a little bit of research, again, with faculty members for the most part, and then internships, a pretty significant part as well. This message down here, I'll read it because it's kind of hard to read. I cut off the last part of it. Student says, I have done everything that I can possibly do in this class. I have worn many hats. Right now, we are getting everything together to present to our client. I have analyzed external and internal interviews, analyzed survey data, gathered a contact list, and sent out invitations to the presentations for faculty and the client. I will be writing the dedication portion of the audit book, my speech for presentation, and putting all this together. So essentially, they're very pleased by the work they do. Some students, they go off campus and they cost some money. We're very close to Chicago, so some of them travel to the city to do their internship. In those situations, I make sure, even if they don't get an hourly rate, that at least they get expenses, because parking in the city is like $34 a day. Driving is expensive. It's much cheaper to take a train if they can. So, I have these questions and comments, but first what I want to do, and I'll let you ask those, of course. However, I want to just bring up this information for a second. These are some of the sites where clients have worked, or students have worked for the clients themselves. So this is one of our computer graphics technology students, where she actually took the information that was within a traditional hardbound textbook kind of thing and figured out how to make it on an iPad, an iPod, a different type of device. And it's not just, grabbing it from here and putting it in here. There's a lot more involved with that. And that was a really successful experience for her and the company, and they're looking for more of our interns to work for them. Community Hospital is a large hospital with three different campuses in Northwest Indiana. Students are working in these areas. Public, not-for-profit government agency, the township government agency, where students have worked in disaster planning, early recovery, networking, desktop maintenance, things of that nature. Unfortunately, they don't get paid because they don't have budget for it. SimCorp is an internationally known company that's computer security. And what they do is, if somebody does something bad to your computer, you pretty much know after the fact, and now you're saying, oh my God, what's next, right? Well, in business, especially defense corporations, things like that, they can't allow that to happen. So this company develops software that immediately recognizes if something's changed in a negative way and has the original file brought back and puts the other one in a quarantine area. Very, very good company. ITAP, I mentioned before. Our students in go down to West Lafayette, they've done this 2 years. They haven't done it this year because there's no money. Tough times all over. But Rosen Center for Computing is high-performance computing facility. Our students worked on the large-scale computing projects. One of the students worked on an existing system, a database system. He revised the SQL code, something that literally took almost 24 hours to run. Took like less than an hour. I mean, that guy came out shining, right? Made all of us look good. That's what we're looking for. Yeah. But he didn't want to work. He didn't get paid. Not only did they pay those students, but they also paid for their housing. So they were down there for like 10 weeks, not 8 weeks, 10 weeks during the summer, full time. It was a great experience for everybody, but money dried up. NIPSCO is our local Northwest Indiana public service company for gas, natural gas, and electricity. We've had a couple students that have worked there as interns and been hired full-time. I learned a lot about that industry just from that one student's perspective. J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the students that we had last summer worked at this place in Ohio, Cincinnati, worked 40 hours a week, and she was kind of like, I thought, a little bit on the rough side, because when she came back, she told me, she said, my boss was in some foreign country, and she said there was somebody local that I could go to, but they didn't really care too much about what I was doing. So she said she went up to that person and she told him, she said, you know what? You're not doing right by me. Oh my God, So she had some whatever, and he agreed with her, and then finally, on a regular basis, they started meeting and she was hired full time. I mean, she's graduating at the end of the spring semester, and they've already made her the offer. So that was pretty cool. And that's IT stuff she's working on as well. On-site computing is a local company, networking. Lincoln Elementary School is a local school about maybe half hour away from our campus. We've had several students every semester work there, not paid, unfortunately. But it's not that far away, and it's a great experience. Undergrad research, as I mentioned before, the DMCS, Disaster Management Communication System with Professor Nikolai. Students always want to work with her. It's like amazing. Even the graduate students, this is all undergraduate type stuff for the ExL thing, but even the grad students work with her, and when they graduate, they still come back and help her. Like, because it's very meaningful, right? It's a social type of fix, something that's horribly wrong when a natural or man-made disaster happens and people can't find their spouse or their kids or whatever. This system does it. Okay, she's prototyping it. She's on sabbatical in the spring semester now, and when she comes back, she'll have it prototyped with her students, and it'll be implemented in that Calumet Township Trustees area where we have a relationship with them already. FireCloud is a company in Indianapolis area, and one of our students last semester worked there, did a lot of work within the security assessment and administration, and they offered him a job. Guess how he found the job? On the web. Yeah. It's like he did his own search. I'm trying to think of what I don't know the name of the place, but unfortunately I know the negative side of that place where the prostitutes and others are. What is it? Craigslist, right. So he went to Craigslist, he found this company that was looking for someone, they interviewed him, whatever, he went down there with Indianapolis, like a 4-hour drive, and he wound up, getting a job temporarily, and then he was hired full-time. Pretty cool. Again, I'm not going to go through all these, but these I'm not going to send this to you because I don't know if they want me to let that information out of this interview, but basically we've done a lot of different things. Unfortunately, most of the main type of work that I'm getting requests for are web stuff. Now, web stuff by itself is okay as long as they involve what? More than just designing and putting together a front end. If there's a back end, database, interface, web, that kind of thing, then yeah, we'll take it on. So I think that's pretty much it. Questions, comments, observations? I've been at the university since 1983. Okay, so I've been there a long time. Before that, I taught 9 years at a community college, so when people say, what about the articulation between this and this? I know what that's all about, too, because I've worked in a community college.
You have articulation with your local community college?
We absolutely do. In fact, I want to spend just 1 second, put up a website that...
Jeff, I'm going to stop the recording, but feel free to keep going.
Okay.
So I can get a copy of the presentation. So I'll do that.
Yeah, if you give me your email address, I'll be glad to send that out. This is one of the forms that is filled out by the advisory committee members, by the client